Thank you, and thank you for having me on this platform. I think a lot of important discussion happening today. So basically, from what my experience was, I was hired as an independent security contractor for UG Solutions, which is a subcontract under a greater contract called Safe Reach Solutions, which is the for-profit contract mechanism under the what many have heard as the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. So the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation is kind of the umbrella organization, but the organizations, the companies that are actually executing this humanitarian assistance, humanitarian aid in Gaza are absolutely for-profit contract companies. They are there making money. Um, so I've said it on many platforms in terms of what I've witnessed in terms of war crimes, and I get a lot of pushback from people saying, well, that what you've described aren't war crimes. Well, what I've described are exactly war crimes. I don't prescribe to war crimes being just because it's on the news and you see someone beheading somebody or somebody doing something grotesque, which those are certainly war crimes. I call them war crimes based on what is prescribed and directed in the international humanitarian law, codified further therein by the protocols of the Geneva Convention, further codified in the laws of armed conflict. And all of these are things that the United States is signatory to, along with Israel. I want to remind everybody, Israel is also signatory to these things. Um, so within Gaza, you have is there a threat in Gaza? The threat of Hamas, the threat of an enemy. There absolutely is. I have never discredited or discounted that. However, there's also a very large unarmed civilian population that is starving, and they are on the brink of famine if they haven't already crossed into what could be described as famine. That that is a fact, and anybody that says that there isn't mass starvation or there isn't starving people in Gaza, that is irresponsible rhetoric, and that should be condemned. There is starvation. War crimes that are being committed when you have um, Israeli Defense Force soldiers and you have UG Solutions, American contractors who, mind you, are in the country on a tourist visa, who are firing at the crowd to control their movement or firing at the crowd to keep them back from a certain area. I mean, that's just one example. Simply that firing live ammunition, targeting at an unarmed population for the means of controlling them is a war crime. So what all this has shown me, having been there, having been on the ground in Gaza, is that it seems to me that there's an active effort, an active campaign, if you will, to dehumanize the population, to label the entire population as the enemy, and then to further dehumanize the population through putting them in a position where they're literally begging for food. We've set up these distribution sites in areas that, in order to reach them, the Palestinians have to travel many kilometers to get there. And when they do get there, it is a mass free for all, fight for survival, if you will, to get food on these locations, which further dehumanizes the population. My fear is that, based on the current information that's available, the proposal that Netanyahu is putting forth to go and reoccupy or occupy the entirety of Gaza once again, is one, for the interest of the United States. We are complicit in that. They are using American weapons. They are using American bombs. Taxpayers' dollars are going into an American contract entity, an American contract mechanism that is making money. US tax dollars going to a company that is making money to be a part of this displacement, if you will, this forced displacement, the putting Palestinians in danger, regardless of the politics or the beliefs or the opinions aside. It is a fact that the distribution sites, the secure distribution sites where humanitarian aid is delivered and distributed in Gaza, are built in the engagement areas of active combat zones. That's a fact. I, I've been there and I've seen them. They are, which in and of itself inherently puts a civilian population at great risk. Just in that piece alone, it should be condemned. And the United States is absolutely complicit in that. If Israel goes into a full occupation of Gaza, it will not be in Israel's best interests. It will not be in the world's best interests. To occupy Gaza, to try to achieve a military defeat of Hamas is a fool's errand. Hamas will not be militarily defeated. They've been militarily weakened. Their leadership has been devastated. Now is the time for political and diplomatic end state, not military means. We have learned these lessons as a country. Afghanistan, Iraq, the southern Philippines. I've been deployed to the southern Philippines in the fight against the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, and we've been there since the 50s, since the days of General Pershing, and we've learned that a military defeat of an organization of this nature is not going to achieve success. The full occupation of Gaza is only going to lead to much, much, much more death of a civilian population. It's going to pull Israel into a quagmire of a conflict that will have no end, that is going to drag its allies into it with it, of which the United States is one. So looking at it, I look at it through three different bins, if you will. Humanitarian rights, humanitarian law, Geneva Convention, international laws and treaties that the United States agrees to that we hold as our values. We are violating those in Gaza every day, and we're being the tail wagging the dog, if you will, in terms of going along with whatever our ally says that we should do, rather than standing up to not standing up to our ally, but standing with our ally to hold accountable for what is right. Because in the end, this is only going to severely damage Israel's position and credibility on the world stage. Two, the aspect of perception that U.S. citizens are in Gaza armed with fully automatic weapons, stun grenades, shotguns, machine guns, tear gas, used against an unarmed civilian population, mind you, that is starving, that comes to these sites to get food. The unarmed population isn't coming to these sites to protest or coming to these sites to try to incite an attack. They're coming to the sites because we're inviting them to come to these sites with food that they need to survive. And then they're getting treated as if they were animals, as if they are subhuman. So there's the aspect of the United States presence on the world stage and in our American values. And my message in spreading what I've seen in Gaza, the truth that I've seen in Gaza, is not to shame or belittle or to criticize or blame. That's on the world community. What my position in this is to bring forth the truth so that the American people and the world have an honest assessment of what's going on. And I think anyone can agree that with the amount of secrecy in Gaza, no foreign press, no press can go in, no foreign entity or anybody that may speak out against the IDF or Israel. And when I think about the secrecy and the hiding of the truth and the doublespeak and the language of no one's being shot and no one's starving, and then when you show ample evidence to the contrary, then the narrative turns to, okay, well, some people are starving and some people are being shot, but Hamas is bad, which you create these red herring arguments. So when you think secrecy, red herring arguments, deflecting blame, there's other countries in the world that do that. North Korea. Is that the lineup that we want to be with in terms of how we engage in the world and how we prosecute conflicts and wars? I don't think so. So the third piece I'll look forward that I look to in terms of Israel, an ally, and their position in the world. If they continue down this path to where it is evident to the world that it is starvation. It is evident to the world that it's systematic and it's done intentionally. If Israel does not change the approach and what they're doing to include not going forth with a full-scale invasion of Gaza. If they continue on this path, this trajectory, they're only going to harm their position on the world stage. They will lose allies and supporters, and they will make themselves more of a target and isolate themselves to where they will not have support in the future. And again, I always make an attempt to take in all perspectives, everyone's view, why someone thinks the way that they do. I did not lose a close family member or a fellow citizen on October 7th. So it would be unfair of me to say, well, this is how an Israeli or the IDF should feel. That would be unfair of me to say that. However, regardless of the justification of a war, regardless of the justification of the reasoning to take action against a perceived enemy, there are values and guidelines and rules and laws and treaties that dictate and establish how that should be done, that maintain responsibility and accountability in our world. That's what it's what we've been doing for hundreds of years. And from what I have witnessed, just looking at the facts as they are, there are war crimes being committed in Gaza. There are crimes against humanity being committed in Gaza. If that's being done intentionally or just through the mission creep and the fog and friction of war, I don't know. But I invite the world to investigate and to look at that, because I've said this before and I'll say it again in ending here. A day of atonement, a day of judgment, a day of reckoning is coming. More and more of the world are waking up to what's going on in Gaza cannot be ignored. The months and months and months and months and months of there's no starvation, there's no mass killing, women and children aren't dying, that's all made up. That rhetoric has been exposed. And a day of reckoning is coming where the world is starting to take a hard look. And when that I kind of, it's like a box. And when that call it when that box is opened, and we look in there and we see what's truly going on, the world is going to demand accountability. Now is the time, not next week, not next year, not after. Now is the time for the United States to stand and hold accountable our ally, because if we do not, the world is going to hold us accountable right alongside of them, right alongside Israel, and it will not be to the benefit of Israel, the United States, and quite frankly, the world. And the thing is that we know this, we can see it. There's evidence, ample evidence, and again, not just from me, not just from one American that was there. And I share these stories with you not as someone that read the newspaper or read an article and applied some kind of opine or opinion to it. I was there, on the ground, seeing it with my own eyes, witnessing it firsthand. So, but even beyond that, if you can't take my word for it, the evidence of many, to include Israeli Defense Force soldiers, IDF soldiers that in the last week have come forth to confirm many of the things that I have said. So what I would ask is that let's look at the truth and let's take an honest assessment of our position in the world right now and choose the right path, because if we do not, we will be on the wrong side of history as a nation. And that's something that I don't want, and I'm sure that's something that no one here wants.